Timothy Cook. Many doubted him when he unfortunately had to succeed the throne at Apple. But guess what? 12 years later, he made what Steve Jobs left, which was already a giant and powerful company, around 8 times bigger. That's close to 10 times bigger. Now sure, there must have been some momentum going on, just general market expansion in a period of unparalleled technological advancement driven by insane demand, but I think people underestimate how easy it is to mess things up with bad leadership. So we gotta give Tim Cook credit, not only for not ruining Apple, but also for successfully growing it into a much bigger and more diversified company. That's it. It must have been hard for old Tim, but how did he do it? What are this man's secrets? Many have tried to figure out his daily habits, his daily routines, but Tim Cook is a notoriously private guy and not much is known about his inner world. That said, we do know some interesting tidbits about his routines. In this video, I'll take these pieces of information and based on my knowledge about other ultra successful business leaders, I'll try to fill in the gaps with regards to Tim Cook's work style and what made him so successful. So let's begin with a recap of what we know about the way his days go. Tim Cook wakes up extremely early. It's around 3:45. Many CEOs have this habit, although Tim is definitely the most extreme example I can think of. It appears he's trying to have a lot of structure and routine to his days, as he's said to always begin by looking at customer feedback mails. And he does that so he can keep his finger on the pulse of Apple customers. Tim Cook is also a health and fitness buff. He's not jacked in any way, but he goes to the gym right after his morning ritual of going through a bunch of mail from users, so he's definitely fit and athletic. His gym work includes stretching and a lot of cardio, which is also great for stress management, by the way. And so many successful people say that sports and fitness is one of the keys, absolute best habits when it comes to managing the insane levels of stress that they need to endure on a daily basis. So if you let go of this habit, it will not only have a negative effect on your physical condition, but also on your mental wellness. So don't do it. Right after that, it doesn't surprise me at all that Tim Cook is going for a healthy breakfast, not too many calories, along with a Starbucks coffee. Again, that generally looks like a fairly typical and actually very well structured morning routine, akin to what many other business leaders do. Once all that is done, Tim will drive to the office at around 8 a.m. to continue his day. Now pay attention to just how much stuff happened already and it's still 8 a.m. A lot of people wake up at 8 a.m. So just something to keep in mind. And now, unfortunately, we have no information about what happens for Tim between 8 a.m. and lunchtime. We know he likes to have lunch at the Apple cafeteria or the restaurant there, but we also don't know what happens between lunchtime and the end of his workday. Unfortunately, I wish we did. But we know that, of course, as any other big business CEO guy, he has a lot of meetings each day. And we'll talk about meetings in a while. Now, he'll usually go to bed at around 8:45, which may sound early to you, but you absolutely need to do that if you wake up at 3:45. So he doesn't have a chance. But he's said to be working actually around the clock very often when there's a big project going on at Apple. We don't have the definition of a big project at Apple. In my mind, that's almost always like a big product launch is happening almost all the time, but who knows? So in those cases, it wouldn't be surprising if he doesn't get nearly enough sleep. But that's how it is if you want to run the biggest company in the world. So the one thing that you read again and again on the topic of meetings is how many questions Tim Cook likes to ask Apple employees to make sure that they really know their stuff. So he'll ask you like 10 questions, and if you get them sufficiently right, then next time, maybe he'll ask you 9 questions. But if you only get one wrong, there are 15 more coming your way. So the obvious extrapolation here I can make is just how demanding of a boss Tim Cook is. So, of course, during his public appearances, interviews, and so on, he's just a guest there. He'll talk about things that sound good and that are inspirational, like equality, enriching people's lives, or making a difference in the world. But make no mistake, while all of these things are true, to a large extent, I believe, the road to these ideals goes through being tough as nails, extremely hardworking, and waking up at 3:45, and holding everyone in the organization accountable for their work. So it's not an easy job, and it's not necessarily all pretty. With such an intense schedule, I imagine Tim Cook is operating like a well-oiled machine, absolutely observing strict start and end times for any meetings, appointments, or events. That's how I think it is, based on my knowledge of what other high-performance business leaders do. So forget about, oh yeah, I love this conversation, it's so interesting, let's keep going. I don't think he's allowed to do that, and technically he's the one allowing and not allowing things at Apple, but he wouldn't allow himself to have fun at work. Let's just say that. So I would imagine that he's having an appointment, he's having a meeting that is supposed to end at 4:30, let's say. 4:30 comes, he's done, he said, thank you for your time, we don't have enough time, I gotta move on, and he's off to the next one immediately after that. So of course his days would be scheduled to the minute. There's no way in hell he can run such a huge company without an extremely strict and fast-paced schedule. Like, you probably know how much there is to do in an organization of immeasurably smaller scale. So you can imagine what it is at Apple, the biggest company in the world. So especially for the CEO, I'm sure work never ends. Work never ends. A constant stream of what I would suppose to be both urgent and important things, non-stop. So of course Tim Cook needs to stick to an extremely strict and a tight schedule. Otherwise, I don't think 24 hours in a day would be enough for him to do all his work. So, yeah. And but despite his intense work days, Tim Cook strikes you, which is very interesting. Tim Cook strikes you as a very calm and collected guy. So, I think that he's that very interesting personality of being both like calm and quiet, but at the same time, like, you can feel it. He's intense and he could strike you suddenly at any moment. So I wouldn't imagine the people he works with at Apple, like other C-suite employees and other Apple employees, would be having a very easy time with him. I'm 100% certain that he's extremely demanding, even though he wouldn't scream and shout like maybe Steve Jobs would do. But the demands on the people he's working with would be very high, for sure. And he also strikes me as a guy who never ever tolerate any form of lousy behavior from other Apple employees. He wouldn't do it. From what I've read, Tim Cook is also extremely detail-oriented, in addition to working with the big picture, because he's the CEO, he's supposed to be that big picture guy, but he's also very detail-oriented. So he would ask you about the number in a cell on a sheet within a sea of other sheets, which is maybe there's something slightly off with that number. And so he would ask you about that, so what's wrong with that? So he's not one to let things slide. And I would imagine that level of standard is the only way to have such a huge organization running in such an efficient manner. So that is Tim Cook, his days and what he would be like as a boss. And make no mistake, guys, if you admire that company and that type of culture and you want to thrive in such an environment, you need to be on your A game always. No time for slow days, no time for not feeling it, especially if you want to be among the best. So if you want to have a chance at surviving in such an environment, in such a company, you need to level up your capacity for action, for time management and impact dramatically, which is where I can help you. If you visit ratslavov.com, you can book a performance coaching session, and you can also book a free 15-minute call so we can talk about all the ways you would like to level up your performance in your career or business. So come check out ratsavo.com to learn more about that, and I'll see you in the next video.